And then there were four. These two matchups on championship weekend are going to be must-see TV. You have Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers, and then likely Patrick Mahomes against Josh Allen and the upstart Buffalo Bills. So today's games I thought were definitely more compelling than the two Saturday games. And both had a chance to even go more down to the wire than they did. And the Chiefs versus the Browns looked like a game at half that was going to be just a runaway. So the Chiefs were up 19-3 at half. They were moving the ball pretty consistently, and the Browns weren't playing poorly. Probably the biggest play of the game, or one of the biggest plays of the game, was towards the end of the half. The Browns at this point are down 16-3, and Baker Mayfield makes a long pass to Rashard Higgins, and as he's reaching for the pylon, he fumbles the ball. Now, there may have been helmet to helmet. They didn't call it. There was no flag on the field, but he fumbles the ball, and it goes into the end zone and out of bounds. So, loss of possession, ball goes to the Chiefs, and that was really big. And at the time, it definitely seemed like this is it. Now, we'll talk about what happened in the second half, but to this point, it looked like, kind of classic Kansas City, taking care of business, doing what they need to do. And what I thought was a little bit weird, but not surprising, was that the Browns decided to defer to the second half. So they would receive the second half kickoff. In a game like this, I think it was important for the Browns to get the ball first. The Chiefs really hadn't been playing football or meaningful football for a few weeks. And, the Browns are definitely, they profile as more of a ground and pound type team. Establish the run, more so than the teams that are remaining in the playoffs, that's for sure. And they fell behind. They did. But they deserve a lot of credit for what they did in the second half. And a big reason for that does go to the fact that Patrick Mahomes got hurt. So Patrick Mahomes had a turf toe injury in the first half. Clearly was hobbling. He did not look right, but it wasn't really affecting his play all that much. He still looked good, still making the good throws, and even when he had to run, it wasn't pretty, but he was able to do what he had to do there. So it was tolerable. But then he would get a concussion on I believe it was a 3rd and short situation. It was either a 4th and short or a 3rd and short, but it was a play where he got the first, but kind of went down awkwardly. It didn't look all that bad on replay, but clearly something was off, and he definitely looked it. When he got up, he definitely looked out of sorts, and he kind of looked like he didn't even know where he was, and he was ruled out for the rest of the game. So there comes backup Chad Henne. It's kind of interesting, the quarterbacks that we've seen in these playoffs. Chad Henne is someone that I think football fans have heard of before. He was a well-known, college quarterback at Michigan years ago, and he's been in the league for a while, but certainly not someone that you've heard of in quite some time. But just think about the names. You've seen Chad Henne, Tyler Heineke, John Wolford, Huntley comes in relief for the Ravens. It's interesting that there's just been these random quarterbacks that have come in really big situations. And he is basically in there to protect the lead. And the Browns made one curious decision. Now, Mahomes, I think at this point, was still in the game at this point. So they get a touchdown to make it 19-9, the Browns. It was a touchdown by Jarvis Landry. And I was surprised they didn't go for two. To try to make it a 19-11, make it a one-score game. They decided to just take the extra points, so they stayed down by 9. And they would eventually, the Chiefs, get a field goal to make it 22-10. And around this time is when Mahomes was, ruled out for the game. The Browns would get a touchdown of their own to make it 22-17. So it didn't really come back to bite that decision, but it could have, where if, let's say, they went for two, got it, would have been an 8-point game. Then let's say the Chiefs do what they did, make it 22-11. And let's say the Browns got their touchdown. They would have then went for two to try to go down by 3. But it ended up not being a big deal, but it was definitely perplexing. But the Browns have the ball down 5, and they're not, and the Chiefs defense, which I kind of suspected. So this game, it was very unpredictable, obviously, with the Mahomes injury. So anything that you kind of thought going in, you kind of had to throw a little bit out the window. But it wasn't how I expected it to be, but the Browns did end up losing by certainly less than the 9 or 10 that was predicted by the spread. This is a very gutsy, gritty Browns team that I think is definitely on the rise. And I think that Baker Mayfield showed a lot. He did. But when they really needed to move the ball, they weren't able to. It really was only one drive, though. So there was about 5 to 6 minutes left, and they had to punt. And it was the right decision. They had to punt. They only had one timeout left. Stefanski challenged a potential Tyreek Hill drop, but it wasn't. It wasn't. It was a really tough catch, but they shouldn't have challenged it. And then he used another timeout. So they could have used those for sure. But here's where it gets really interesting. So the Chiefs have the ball 5. And mind you, Chad Henne in the previous possession threw an interception. Just went for a deep pass. Wasn't smart considering, like, from an Andy Reid perspective, wasn't really smart. And, but again, the Chiefs defense held. So now the Chiefs have the ball. And you're at that time where the Browns burned all their timeouts. You're kind of around the 2-minute warning. And it's a 5-point game. And you're thinking, are they going to run it 3 times? So that they run on first down. And then on second down, it's, second and, 10, maybe second. I don't know, actually, it might have been second and 8. And there's 2:30 left. And they actually decide to throw the ball. Henne drops back and takes the sack, which is the smart move. You didn't want to throw an incomplete there. So now it's the 2-minute warning, 3rd and 14. No timeouts left for the Browns. I'm thinking, with Henne in, all right, they're just going to hand it off. And the Browns get the ball back with about 1:20. Not great field position, down 5. And Andy Reid, you have to respect it. It's what he did those next 2 plays, you wouldn't believe. So Henne's actually dropping back to pass, and he actually runs, and he almost gets the first down. He almost gets the 14 yards. He was just short. His elbow was down. Upon review, he was short. So the ball's at about midfield, 4th and inches. Let's say 4th and inches, 4th and 1. And the clock is running. And again, it was amazing that they even did that. And they're going up to the line. I'm thinking they're just going to try to draw him off. There's no chance with Henne. Like, if you don't get this, Cleveland has an excellent chance to get a touchdown here. But they actually did go for it. And Tyreek Hill was wide open. First down, game over. Andy Reid, that's all I can say. I mean, it really takes a lot of guts to go for it there. Really remarkable stuff. And Chad Henne did what he had to do. He did. And even that 3rd and 14 run, that really set them up. And he makes the throw. Easy play. And the Chiefs continue to find ways to win. They do. They just do. And it hasn't been pretty at all. This year, for as good as their record's been, for the fact that they're a defending Super Bowl champion team, they do not blow teams out. That's just not the way they do things, but they find ways to win. So the favorite Chiefs win, and they will now be hosting the Buffalo Bills. So we'll get into, looking into these 2 championship games, but let's talk about the Bucs versus the Saints. So I think that one could argue, and it really had a chance to be even better, but this could have been the best playoff game to this point. I don't know if there's really been one definitive one. Colts-Bills, I think, is up there as one of the best ones. I think that was, as much as the Ravens-Titans had hype around it going into the first round, I think that Bills-Colts was a fun, a lot going on game. And for me, Brady versus Breeze, this was a tight game pretty much the whole way. I guess until the very end. And it kind of went as I said. So I guess in my predictions, I guess you could say I was 3 out of 4. Chiefs and Packers did what they had to do. I was wrong. Bills, Ravens, I thought the Ravens were going to, find a way, but the Bucs were able to win. And it's tough to beat a team 3 times, and especially when Tom Brady's the quarterback that you're trying to beat 3 times. And I just figured if this is going to be close, which it was, the final score ends up being 30-20. So it appears like it was maybe a little bit more lopsided than it was. This was a tight ball game. You trust Tom Brady over Drew Brees. And that was 100% true in this game. So the Saints had a couple of big plays on special teams. One that was called back due to penalty, but Deontay Harris, really, I believe he left this game early. Had a couple of really explosive plays, but the Saints weren't able to really take advantage. And it's funny, the means of the Saints kind of points was that, and then also a Jameis Winston touchdown to Traquan Smith, where it was a nice play design by Sean Payton, and they schemed Smith wide open, and Winston was actually the one that made that throw. So Drew Brees ended up with 3 interceptions this game. He did not play well. He did not look good. And the Saints, I'd say, had the lead for the most part in this game, but the Bucs were always within striking distance. And Tom Brady did not make mistakes. He almost, there was a situation where he almost, made a couple of turnovers. Didn't happen, though. And maybe the stat sheet won't say it, but Brady really did a good job considering that the Saints really handled him in the regular season games. He throws a touchdown to Mike Evans. Leonard Fournette continues to look good, and Ronald Jones comes back from injury. When he was in there, he was very effective. So Brady, just continues his playoff excellence. Obviously, you say what you want about the guy, but it's awfully impressive. It really, really is. I can't, new team, and the Saints obviously, really, really like we've never seen before in a way where they, for as good as the Bucs were this season, the Saints, I can't think, that second game at Tampa, that Sunday night game, I can't remember a blowout of that magnitude between 2 playoff teams. It was really something else. And like I said, tough to beat a team 3 times. And Drew Brees made some crucial mistakes down the stretch. Devin White is a great player for the Bucs, great linebacker. That's the thing with the Bucs. They have a lot of weapons on offense and on defense. That they're a very well-balanced team in that way. And Jared Cook had a really big fumble also when the game was tied. And, the Bucs take advantage. And with the Saints down by 3, Brees, they had a chance. Certainly it was well within reach. And Brees, just threw an interception. Michael Thomas had no catches. Taysom Hill and Latavius Murray were out due to injury. And that probably, that hurt them. It did. And I think for me, with the Saints, this is now 3 years in a row where they've lost at home in the playoffs. Last year being the first round of the Vikings. The year before that, they were the 1 seed, and it was a controversial loss to the Rams. It was. But that was a game where they should have won. It shouldn't even come down to that no call against the Rams, and they ended up losing in overtime. And the year before that was the Minneapolis Miracle, of course, in Minnesota, the Stephon Diggs touchdown at the end. So they've lost in tough ways. I'm not going to fully blame them. It's not like they've gotten destroyed, but I think that their reputation has taken a major hit. This was a team that won the Super Bowl, in the 2009 season. It's been a long time, and I think, this is probably it for Drew Brees, obviously, and it should be. He's just not the same player he was. I think that same team with an improved quarterback, we're talking about a team that maybe could have reached the Super Bowl. I think that is a difference. They have playmakers. On defense, it's a solid unit. It is, and to be honest, today that defense was not terrible. It was really Drew Brees that single-handedly hurt this team. No way around that. And so him hanging it up, what I will say, he really turned that franchise around. Him and Sean Payton, they did. That was basically a team that was known for losing for a very long time. They were one of the jokes of the league. And this was a pretty consistent, good team for as long as he was there, and he got them a Super Bowl too, which he'll be a hero in New Orleans forever. So, and he's going to the Hall of Fame, and, really a very, very good career. But, lately, these last few years, it just hasn't worked out. And these have been good teams, and he was perfect in the playoffs in the Superdome. And again, I know, obviously, this year, not many fans, so it's a little bit different. But the last 3 years, he lost, at home. And this year, one of the wins was home against the Bears. I'm sorry, I can't give much credit for that, especially when the number 2 seed until this year had a bye. And the Bears, were a 8-8 team. This was not a playoff squad. So, yeah, I think we'll see what comes next. We'll see. I think, Sean Payton with a new quarterback could be interesting. I would expect the Saints to stay very relevant. But, yeah, look, Tom Brady is just at this point in both of their careers, he's better than Drew Brees. Just is. So, disappointing end for the Saints. They were the one home team to lose this weekend. It was almost a battle of 1 versus 2 and 1 versus 2. Instead, it'll be in the AFC 1 versus 2 and in the NFC 1 versus 5. So, I can't wait for these matchups next week. So, for the NFC, you have the Bucs at the Packers. They played this year in Tampa, and the Bucs really, really, just like the Saints had beaten the Bucs badly, that's what the Bucs did to the Packers. And you would expect the Packers to certainly learn from those mistakes. It is in Green Bay. That should help for sure. Although Tom Brady, obviously for years and years and years, is used to cold weather football, so that won't faze him one bit. The Bucs team as a whole, it could, maybe. And, if the weather is like it was this week in Green Bay, it shouldn't be a big factor. It sounds like it's going to be a little bit colder, maybe some snow next weekend, but we'll see. But if I had to predict that game, I'm going to go with the Bucs for that one. And it's going to be really close. And Aaron Rodgers is totally locked in. And I would not be surprised at all if he wins, of course. Now, last year, the Packers made it to the NFC Championship game. They're back. And this is after they really just got steamrolled by San Francisco. San Francisco ran all over them. Raheem Mostert, in particular, put up some numbers. And it wasn't a close game. So, the Packers are going to come back strong. They will. And like I said, it helps that it's at home. And I think the fact they lost to Tampa, it means something. But I think they'll come out strong. But I don't know if it's because I just watched the Bucs Saints game, but I really think that Tom Brady in these situations, not that he's the only one doing it, he's got a lot around him on both sides of the ball. It's hard for me to pick against him. It just is. It really is. This is going to be a great matchup between, look, I think you do have in a lot of ways the 4 best teams remaining. I guess the one caveat being the Saints, like, if not for Drew Brees, that was a really good New Orleans team. So I don't know if I can fully say that. New Orleans definitely deserves to be in that conversation. But I'm certainly excited to see Brady versus Rodgers, and it's a matchup that we haven't seen. They rarely played each other. Like, at least Brees was barely in the AFC early in his career. We have not seen Rodgers versus Brady. And there were times when there was a chance, maybe New England versus Green Bay. It never happened. It never happened. I remember, a few years ago, where the year when New England beat Atlanta, Green Bay had been in the NFC Championship against the Falcons, so it came close there. I'm sure there were other opportunities as well, and it just didn't come to fruition. New England had a very good team. The year that Green Bay won the Super Bowl was actually the year that New England got knocked off by the Jets. That was a very good Patriot team, so there was a couple of wins away there from meeting up in the Super Bowl. So Green Bay, kind of similar to New Orleans, in the sense that Green Bay won a Super Bowl a long time ago. Now, obviously, no more Mike McCarthy. You still have Sean Payton, Drew Brees, but Aaron Rodgers has had playoff appearances since. They've been, for the most part, one of the top teams in the league, and they have lost a few times in the NFC Championship game. Obviously, last year, they got crushed against the Falcons, and then they had that heartbreaker at Seattle, where they could not, the onside kick, they were not able to recover. Fumbled it, Saints get it, and they win it in overtime. So they've come really close. So for that reason, it's going to be a really good game. I think that Aaron Rodgers, he's dying to get back to this point and get over that hump. They have come close and not able to do so and win. So cannot wait for that game. AFC, Chiefs versus the Bills. This is assuming that Patrick Mahomes is playing. And I think that he will. It sounds like, from what Andy Reid said and just what you hear, hard to believe that Patrick Mahomes won't be available and ready. And I'm almost more concerned about the turf toe. I think that he'll clear this concussion protocol, but you may get a little bit of a banged up Mahomes. That's possible, but I don't see it as enough to really affect my prediction. So this is kind of assuming that Mahomes is basically okay. And I will be rooting for the Bills. That is for sure. The Chiefs won last year. Let someone else get it now. And I think the Bills is definitely the team that I would like to see win this game. However, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. So the Packers and the Chiefs will be the favorites. Not by a whole lot, but they will be. And in one of them, I'm going to go with the underdog Bucks. And here I'm going to go with the favorite Chiefs. And they just find ways to win games. We've seen that. The defense steps up when it has to. And I still don't know, as much as I like Josh Allen, I really do. And I'm excited to see what this game's going to bring. Like, honestly, both games, there's going to be a ton of passing. It's going to be awesome. It really is. And the Bills are coming in really strong. So I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being the Bills versus the Packers in the Super Bowl. Nothing would really shock me to this point. These teams are very good, and I think any combination of Super Bowl is going to be great. However, just knowing that this was a team that won last year, they know what it takes. The Bills, this is really the first time that, obviously, they hadn't won a playoff game in so long. And now they get to this point, and it was an impressive win against the Ravens. It really was. I would like to see them win. It would be great to see the Bills back in the Super Bowl, for the first time since, they lost, 4 times in a row, which is unheard of back in the early 90s. So they are certainly capable of doing it, but Mahomes is a magician, and he has players playing at a really high level, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, and all the other guys too. And it doesn't even matter that they don't even have a great running back. Darrell Williams was basically the guy today, and he did okay. Damian Williams last year isn't really what you'd call one of the top running backs in the league, and he did really, really well too. So I think Edwards-Helaire will be back, which should help. Le'Veon Bell is toast. Would not expect him to get a whole lot of run, but it'll be interesting. It'll be close. But I think that we are going to see Pat Mahomes against Tom Brady, which would be a rematch of the AFC Championship game a few years ago, which was a classic. Definitely one of the best games that I can remember. And the Patriots were able to win that game. But I think we'll see that. But look, if it's Aaron Rodgers versus Mahomes, likely the 2 top MVP candidates this season, or you get Josh Allen in there, versus, let's say, Brady. Again, Brady has history versus Mahomes. Brady has history against the Bills. There's tons of storylines you can get here. I'm very excited about who remains. It's going to be fun. And I think that as a football fan, I think there has to be a lot of excitement. And I know that with Tom Brady in particular, people just want to see him lose. I'm to the point where he is easy not to like. Very obvious. And Aaron Rodgers, for example, too, some love him, some probably don't either. He is obviously one of the legendary quarterbacks as well. But I just think what Brady just continues to do, when people thought that he was probably done or close to done after what he did last year, he's proving the doubters wrong, which he always does. So you can't complain. Bucks at the Packers, Bills at the Chiefs. Let's see what happens. And maybe we will get, in such a random year, such an odd year, the first time that a team, in this case the Bucks, is playing at their home stadium in the Super Bowl, which will be held in Tampa. This is going to be great. I wish it was next Sunday already. And I will speak to you guys next week.